And so, Thor, the god of thunder, the king of Asgard, the Allfather, the final avenger, readies his last stand against Gorr, the god butcher. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop to the pages of King Thor issue number 4, the grand finale to Jason Aaron's Thor saga. Alrighty then, so picking up from where we last left off, things were looking pretty dire for our hero. Gorr the God Butcher had shirked off his physical form and embedded himself into what was left of the dying universe, essentially becoming a giant, unstoppable necroverse. King Thor fights with everything he has left, even though he admits his hammer is becoming more and more heavy, that he's already had planets blow up in his face, and he's doing everything in his power just to keep his guts from falling out of his wounds. There is ultimately a kind of zen that comes with smashing. After all, what is a hammer made for if not to totally wreck shop? And that's exactly what Thor's doing now, destroying parts of a universe that were already pretty much dead. For Gorr's last final insult to the Thunder King, he plans to throw him inside a black hole so every one of his cells can literally be butchered one little bit at a time. With Thor gone too, that pretty much means the last of any real resistance is gone from the world as well, but there's still the matter of Loki. The god of mischief just can't stand not being the center of attention, and he still has some unfinished business with Gorr himself, wanting to get a couple good licks in before it's all said and done. The truly beautiful thing is that despite all the sibling rivalry they've had over the years, despite all the bad blood and attempted murder, Loki still very much believes in his brother Thor, that if anyone can undo this, it can be him. Perhaps Gorr was right in that gods were untrustworthy, cruel, and tyrannical, but you know what? Thor is a lot more than just a god. Thor is Thor, and he makes the impossible possible. You see, the king of Asgard had one last final ace up his sleeve, and that is of course the hammer itself. We know it's just more than magic and Uru metal. Inside the hammer exists an unstoppable storm. A god storm to rival the full power of the Phoenix Force. Normally, Thor would be too afraid to unleash its full power on the universe because, well, everything might get destroyed, but everything was already dying or is already Gorr right now, so why not go whole hog? Gore is defeated and his stench is rubbed off the universe. It's just everything else is rubbed off with it, including the sun, meaning that Midgard may very well die. But here's where Loki comes on in once again. Inspired by his brother's heroic action, Loki flies into the dying star and restarts it with his own body. But he does this not as the god of mischief, but as the god of stories once again, bringing back all of his development from Al Ewing's Loki run. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, geez, this story ended pretty abruptly, didn't it? Well, it doesn't, because this is actually only part 1 of a 3-act story. You see, from here we take a couple steps back and get reintroduced to Shadrach, the former god of bombs turned junior librarian for the city of Omnipotence. He's in the Thor section of the library at some point in the past. He's just marveling at all the different eras in the God of Thunder. In fact, some of the titles on these books are straight up references to famous Thor stories, and Shadrach wonders too, hey, what adventures could the future have for Thor? We get a few glimpses into what some other alternate futures might be for Thor, one wherein he becomes a literal god cop doling out justice to the divine, and another where he becomes Thor the God Planet. Heck, Aaron starts drawing a bunch of comparisons between the Thor on the Avengers now and different incarnations of the Avengers throughout history, even his own Avengers BC in the current Avengers book. Why, we even get a look as to what a potential future Avengers team starring the Thunder Sisters could potentially be. They even finish off the storyline of who exactly is going to succeed Heimdall as the new Bifrost Watcher. Hey, it's Sif, everybody. Sif, in the greater scheme of things, got very little to do in this decade-long Jason Aaron run, but it's nice that he remembers her, if only here at the very end. And it's here that we enter the true final chapter for King Thor. Gorr has been defeated, peace has been returned to the realms, and a new age of prosperity has begun, wherein man and god work side by side. But for all the good heroic things that Thor had done, this was really only a band-aid on a much bigger problem. The universe is falling to entropy. And the only way that it can possibly be stopped is if the King of Thunder is willing to give up his own life, and because of that, he bids a teary goodbye to his granddaughters. Entrust them with the safekeeping of Mjolnir before eventually flying off into the heart of entropy itself to become the god that his father always wondered if he could be, one capable of holding up all of creation. In his final moments, Thor begins to wonder to himself, what is the true meaning of thunder? If a sword is to cut and a hammer is to smash, then truly thunder is to be heard, yes? And indeed, the legend of Thor, the god of thunder, will be heard across the universe, across generations, across multiverses, because thunder is eternal. And so that was King Thor issue number 4, everybody, and ultimately I thought it was a very strong, very satisfying conclusion to what will probably go down in history as one of the most important runs on the character. Everything comes nice and full circle in a truly satisfying way. There's even some references to stuff that happened early on in the run that I, a super fan, forgot about. You also really can't beat the image of your hero at the very end becoming one with everything and dying so the rest of the world can live. But just because this is the last Thor story as far as Jason Aaron is concerned doesn't mean that he doesn't also put the toys back in the box for other people like Donny Cates, whose new run will be starting before we know it, to play around as well. I would say it's an almost perfect conclusion. I get they were doing with the whole middle part of this story, trying to wrap up loose ends that maybe didn't get a chance to get wrapped up in the main book, maybe talk about some fun out there ideas that we might see at some point. I don't know, I personally felt the book would be stronger and more coherent without that middle part. Ultimately, I still really enjoyed it, and if you are a Thor fan, you owe it to yourself to check this one out. It's a hell of a ride. I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. To think that Jason Aaron has literally been writing Thor for as long as I have been covering comics professionally on the internet, it's sad to see it go, but parting is sweet sorrow, and I know we'll see each other again. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.